Very early in my real estate career, I had to represent my then company at quite a fancy dinner to celebrate the end of a major project. So in I walked in my early 20s to a private dining room in a very snazzy restaurant, and at the room were 15 men sitting around a table, and the chairman spotted me, stood up, put his hand on the table and said, "Gentlemen, lady present," at which point all conversation ceased. I shuffled to my seat as quietly as I could and thought, very clearly, for some people in this room, my presence is really a bit of a hindrance to the way that they wanted their evening to go. Thankfully, that hasn't happened since, but frequently I am the only woman in a meeting room, the only woman on a panel, and there is a bit of a stereotype about real estate being a sea of blue suits at a conference. But real estate as a sector encompasses a really wide range of technical professions: architecture, engineering, construction, property development, investment, advisory, and actually it impacts all of us on a daily basis. The homes we live in, the workplaces that we go to and from, the leisure facilities and the retail that we use, the parks and public spaces. It is actually the most tangible sector, yet for some reason it's also the most opaque and incredibly poorly understood by the general public. If I tell someone I work in real estate, 95% of people will go, "Oh, you're an estate agent." Now, estate agents are an important part of the ecosystem of my industry, but sadly they are also frequently listed alongside bankers and tax inspectors as the least popular professions in the world. And yes, there has been some negative press re bad behaviour in real estate, but I truly believe it has the potential as a sector to have a really positive impact and to leave a real legacy, and it should be something that everybody wants to work in. My day-to-day role actually involves a huge range of really exciting and creative tasks that can shape urban places and communities. I get to pitch to international institutional investors and ensure that we deliver them a return, but also a really positive social impact on every project that we design, deliver, and build. I get to work with governments, local authorities, landowners, and communities on policy, but also how to explore the best ways to regenerate places that have been neglected or damaged or just left behind or underused. I get to work with incredibly creative architects, designers, and developers to create beautiful, safe, and sustainable buildings. And I get to explore the best new technology that's impacting everything in the world around us. I could bore you for hours about drone delivery landing pads and the best recycling chutes and Wi-Fi ovens that can have your supper ready before you come home, but that is a different kind of talk. But it's all around future-proofing the places around us, the buildings and the communities around us for this digital world that we're going into. But despite that variety and the creativity that's possible, too often my industry is characterized by a stereotype of really rapacious and greedy developers focused on high profit margins and volume transactions. Mark Hogan is an architect in San Francisco, and he wrote a great little piece on the City Lab website where he highlighted all the Hollywood movies that had the character trope of developer as villain. It's a Wonderful Life, The Goonies, Disney Pixar's movie Up. And those bad guys are always guys. Because real estate is remarkably homogenous. It's traditionally a very male-dominated partnership culture. The British Property Federation and the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, one of the main professional bodies, state that in the UK, only 14% of real estate professionals are women. If you look only at senior directors, it goes down to 9%. Privately educated white men are massively overrepresented, and the average UK gender pay gap for real estate firms is 30%. That's over double the national average. Now, over the past few years, there's been many industry-wide campaigns with diversity and inclusion, not just on gender, quite importantly, on LGBTQIA, on ethnicity, on difference of social class. And there are loads of great peer support networks, Women in Property, BAME in Property, Creation Property Network, but there is inevitably a time lag in getting the senior leadership roles to be more representative of the population that we're working around. And the impact of that homogeneity, that groupthink, is felt across our built environment, because most cities are designed and built by men. Post-war, European cities focused around men commuting by car, but 2/3 of the average woman's journey were by foot, often around places that had narrow or non-existent pavements, very poor lighting, and became really unsafe. There have been global campaigns for many years around designing cities for women and people with broader needs. Vienna, Barcelona, Buenos Aires, they've all explored and experimented with something called gender mainstreaming in their urban design projects. These might not always be the most glamorous things, but they really make a difference. For instance, ladies, more toilets. Really, really important. Women need to go to the bathroom on average 3 times more than men. Yet that's one of the things that's very rarely factored into any kind of urban design program. Improving shared spaces, having those wider pavements where if you've got a buggy or a wheelchair or just small stuff or small children, you've got the space to have them there. More benches, places to interact and talk to people. Benches at different heights because not all of us are 6 foot tall. Better lighting. Our urban environment needs to respond to all of those very basic, tangible things, but also to the rapid shifts in a digital economy. We urgently need to reinvent our high streets in the age of internet shopping. We need to improve the quality and the quantity of housing for a population that's living a lot longer and in very different household formations. We need our offices to reflect the flexibility of activities that goes on in them. And we need places designed for people and communities, not just for investor return. So the real estate sector needs future-proofing, but it needs to have ideas generated by a much broader group of people, much more representative than, unfortunately, it currently comprises. However, recruiting and retaining that new and diverse talent is proving something of a challenge. The opacity and the negative stereotypes are not really attracting that many candidates, and not unreasonably, companies that have already invested a huge amount of money in diversity initiatives, unconscious bias training, in mentoring programs for women and minorities are getting a little bit frustrated that the numbers are not really shifting at all. Even when you have apprentices and graduates that are broadly 50-50 male-female, that's not being retained into senior management. And of course, some of that is around the challenge of balancing career and family life, a burden which disproportionately falls on women despite the introduction of things like shared family leave policies and more flexible working. I have to disappear off tonight because it's my daughter's school carol service tomorrow morning and I need to be there. But too often, it is still implied that women simply can't keep up or perform at a senior level. Of course, it's a level playing field now, but the girls can't make the grade. So as valuable as that mentoring and peer support and training is, I believe that the key to retaining more women who will succeed and thrive in the long term in real estate is actually about access. Now, Sheryl Sandberg, in her book Lean In, and in her 2010 TED Talk, talked about the importance of getting in the room. And absolutely that is the case. But as my opening story shows, you've got to have some kind of idea of what to say and do when you get there. So I'd like to make just a few different suggestions. And the first one, the one that I think is the most important, and I tell everybody I mentor, is find your cheerleaders. This is not your friends, and it's not your mentors and your boss. This is the people who will champion you when you're not in the room. The men and women who will spot the opportunities that you would never have come across otherwise, and they will be able to push you and help you and coach you to go for them, to be your cheerleaders and help you beat that imposter syndrome that affects everybody at some point in their life. Secondly, I'd say yes to the opportunity, and then find a way to figure it out. There was a minor controversy in my industry when one of our leading journals had been criticised for having too many all-male panels. And the female editor, again, not unreasonably, pointed out that actually she'd asked lots and lots of women to speak at various events, but too often the women declined. And actually, there's a lot of evidence from across a range of studies. One of the most famous is from Hewlett-Packard. It's in a Harvard Business Case Review. That said, actually, if there are 10 criteria for a role, and a man and a woman both have 7, a man is infinitely more likely to just chuck in an application and see what happens. Whereas a woman will tend to sort of deselect herself from the opportunity. I'll wait until I have 9, maybe all 10 criteria, and then I'll apply. So actually, there's a real difference here between positive discrimination and positive action. Positive discrimination is giving me a job because I'm a girl and you need to tick a box. Don't do that. Positive action, enabling those women to feel confident enough to apply in the first place. That's really key. So taking the responsibility to step up, say yes to the opportunity, but then find that support network to help you figure it out. Also, allow yourself an off day. I think one of my mentees said to me, we either have to be exceptional or we're tired. There's reams of get-ahead advice for women. Stop apologizing. Be bolshy but not bossy. Take more credit and don't wait to be noticed. Frankly, it can be quite exhausting, even for the most motivated of us around that. As the oracle of our times, Taylor Swift says in The Man, I'm so sick of running as fast as I can, wondering if I'd get there quicker if I was a man. Put another way, Madeleine Albright said, there's a lot of room in this world for mediocre men, but there's none for mediocre women. And I believe that this is in part down to this kind of assumption that success in a traditionally male workplace, like in a real estate company, requires behavior like a certain type of alpha male, aggressively assertive, overconfident, perhaps. Now, the theme of today is bold and brilliant women. And I'd like to suggest that one of the boldest things we can do is challenge those expectations of what success looks like in business and in leadership. That you don't have to be a scary woman to be a successful leader, but instead that you could be the kindest person in the room. Not weak or a pushover, but empathetic, modeling a kind of culture that supports all your staff and your teams to give their best. And actually, there's some academic research very recently published by the Side Business School at Oxford and Hall and Partners that demonstrated that kind leadership results in better quality of work and higher employee motivation. Owning, modeling, championing kind behavior is a really powerful way to demonstrate the value of more traditionally female traits. And Monica Hess, who's the gender correspondent for the Wall Street Journal, wrote recently about the potential to highlight and value micro-kindnesses as much as we acknowledge and call out the damage of microaggressions, which is all too common in today's conflicted society. And finally, I really want to encourage all the women and girls, the bold and brilliant women, to embrace technology. Too often is left to the boys. Tech already allows me to work remotely and not be tied to a fixed desk in one office every day. However, real estate as an industry is frighteningly analog, and too many firms are too focused on the bricks and mortar still and think a digital strategy is just having a customer app or an online payment system. Yet the way that we build is being absolutely transformed by the potential for robotic and digital manufacture. The UK actually has a really intense shortage of quality trained construction labour. 60% of the UK workforce is due to retire in the next 10 years, and we have zero replacement factor. Now, frankly, what 15-year-old do you know with a smartphone who would wittingly go and work on a construction site on a wet, cold December day like this? I don't know any. But actually, if you can talk about digital manufacture, modern methods of construction, using the best in kind of science, technology, and robots, it becomes perhaps slightly more appealing. And both government and many firms are really investing quite heavily in a whole range of modern methods of construction. And I think those could offer the potential to challenge stereotypes, that it doesn't have to be a big, burly man in construction, that actually you can have a man or a woman working remotely, designing, building, and running our future cities. The same way that science and medicine are collaborating to help surgeons who can't access patients in remote or dangerous areas actually perform surgery that could save their lives. I'm not going to pretend that the shift from analog to digital will be easy, quick, or seamless, or that there isn't quite some resistance from more traditional real estate players. It's Franklin Leonard who said, when you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. But the potential is there. There's a real opportunity to diversify the workforce more quickly, and for women who are still less likely to study STEM subjects or go into these careers, to actually find about the range of opportunities within real estate, and actually the need for creative, empathic leaders, for bold and brilliant women. So some of the young people in this room, I would hope, might want to come into this sector. But I'd also like to close by remembering how recent it is that any of us can access those opportunities. My maternal grandmother left school at 14 because of the Second World War and is one of the smartest women I'd ever met, but always had that sense of regret that she'd never really been able to pursue her education. My mother was one of the first women who was allowed into Cambridge to study a full law degree, which had previously been closed to women. But when she got into her first job, was told that she would only be there until she got married because nobody really wanted a female lawyer anyway. And my paternal grandmother was a bit more of a rebel and was hilarious, worked her way up from being a secretary to a finance director in a large international firm, but had to have a male assistant to do conference calls with overseas investors who would certainly have not dealt with a woman. So actually, we are leveling the playing field, and there is huge potential here, but I think we could do more. I am also involved with a small charity called the Sunscreen IT Foundation, which has dual function. It deals with ethical and safe disposal of IT equipment, but also then invests in and provides clean IT labs to schools in West Africa to enable those children to have access to the same kind of digital world that we're all living and working in. And we spoke to one of the teachers in the school in our first deployment in Ghana 5 years ago, and I said to him, but don't you get donated loads of kits? And he said, it's basically trash. It's completely unusable and we can't plug it in. And I said, well, how do you teach? And he pointed at a picture on the wall that was a hand-drawn QWERTY keyboard and a hand drawing of the 3 parts of a mouse. And he said, I have to stand in front of this and point at it, and that's how they learn IT. Well, those girls in that school now have a solar-powered clean IT lab that is equipping them with the same skills that our children have here, and perhaps they could also be the bold and brilliant women who are designing and building and operating the cities of our future. Thank you very much.